Once upon a time there was a loving couple, Maria and João, whose happiness shone through every moment they spent together. They shared a deep and genuine connection, something rare and precious. João was a hard-working man, dedicated to his wife, and Maria, a caring and attentive woman, dreamed of building a family with the man she loved. When Maria announced that she was pregnant, João felt a mix of joy and nervousness. He could hardly wait to hold his child in his arms, to teach him to play ball, and to share the moments he had always imagined. The pregnancy was a time of anticipation and preparations. João painted the baby's room, carefully chose the furniture, and even embroidered some clothes, his heart full of love. Finally, the day arrived. The birth of little Miguel should have been the happiest moment of their lives, but something unexpected happened. When João saw the baby for the first time, his world crumbled. Miguel had darker skin, and João, consumed by prejudice and insecurity, couldn't understand how this was possible. Doubt and anger began to grow inside him. Without thinking twice, João accused Maria of betrayal, believing she had been involved with another man. His harsh and venomous words deeply hurt Maria. She tried to explain, tried to calm him, but João didn't want to listen. He was blinded by his own ignorance and prejudice. The love that once united them was now broken. João packed his bags and left, abandoning Maria and Miguel. He walked away from everything, the woman he loved, his newborn son, the life they had built together. The weight of the accusation of betrayal hung over Maria like a shadow, as she struggled to understand how everything had fallen apart so quickly. And so, in a moment that should have been one of celebration and joy, Maria found herself facing the greatest pain of her life. The love between her and João, which seemed indestructible, had been shattered by prejudice, leaving a void she didn't know how to fill. João, still shaken by the initial shock, couldn't get the image of little Miguel out of his mind. His thoughts were flooded with a whirlwind of emotions, anger, confusion, and a deep sense of betrayal. The idea that Maria could have been unfaithful gnawed at his soul, making him feel like a boat adrift in a sea of uncertainties. That night, while Maria's tears soaked her pillow, João paced back and forth, his mind swirling with unanswered questions. How could she do this to me? He thought, growing increasingly convinced that his wife had betrayed him. Consumed by despair, he decided to confront her. At dawn, with red eyes and a hardened heart, João entered the room where Maria was caring for Miguel. He could barely look at the baby, feeling a mix of pain and revulsion. With a trembling but determined voice, he made the accusation that would change their lives forever. "Maria, I know what you did," he said, his voice filled with bitterness. "How could you betray me like this? Who is this boy's father?" Maria, holding Miguel in her arms, looked at João with a mix of disbelief and sadness. "João, what are you talking about? Miguel is our son. How can you doubt me like this?" But João was deaf to Maria's pleas. Every word she spoke seemed like a lie, a desperate attempt to cover up her infidelity. "Don't give me these lies, Maria. Do you think I'm an idiot? Look at him. He can't be my son." The room filled with unbearable tension. Maria, with a broken heart, tried to explain. She talked about her parents, about genetics, but João didn't want to listen. To him, the betrayal was written on the baby's skin, and nothing Maria said could erase that. "I don't believe you, Maria," he finally said, his voice cold and sharp. "I can't stay here. I can't look at you knowing what you did." And with those words, João turned his back and left, leaving Maria alone with their son. The accusation of betrayal hung in the air, a poison that destroyed the trust and love between them. Maria stayed there, holding Miguel, feeling more alone than ever. She knew that nothing she said could change João's mind, and that realization was a devastating blow. The door closed behind João, and with it, all of Maria's hopes for reconciliation. The accusation had been made, and the consequences were irreversible. Maria felt the weight of the world on her shoulders as João walked out of their lives, leaving a trail of pain and sorrow behind. Time seemed to stand still in Maria's small house. The days became a monotonous sequence of responsibilities and sadness. The sun still rose every morning, but for Maria, the light had gone out. João's absence left a deep, painful void, a constant echo of the unjust accusation he had made. Maria got up every day to take care of Miguel, but each smile from the baby was like a knife in her heart, reminding her of the love that had turned into distrust. She carried not only the weight of daily tasks but also the emotional burden of abandonment. The silence in the house, once filled with laughter and conversations, was now suffocating. The nights were the hardest. When Miguel finally fell asleep, Maria was left alone with her thoughts. Sitting in the rocking chair in Miguel's room, she cried silently, replaying every harsh word João had hurled at her. The house felt cold, devoid of João's warm presence. The bed they once shared now seemed enormous and empty, each vacant space a reminder of her solitude. She repeatedly wondered how João could doubt her so easily. How could he disregard all the moments they shared, all the trust and love they built? The pain of being unjustly accused was intense, but the pain of being abandoned was unbearable. Each day was a struggle to move forward, to be strong for Miguel. Friends and family tried to comfort Maria, but their words couldn't reach the depths of her sadness. She smiled at them, grateful for their support, but inside, she felt empty. They couldn't understand the extent of her pain, the agony of being betrayed by the person she loved most. Miguel, in his innocence, brought moments of joy to Maria, but also constantly reminded her of the man who had rejected him. She clung to these moments of happiness, trying to find strength in them to keep going. Every laugh from Miguel was a small spark of light in a sea of darkness, a reminder that she still had a reason to fight. Maria knew she needed to move forward for Miguel and for herself, but the pain of abandonment doesn't fade easily. It was a deep wound, aching with every heartbeat. She wondered if one day this pain would lessen, if one day she could look to the future without feeling this shadow over her soul. But for now, all she could do was keep going. One day at a time, one step at a time, carrying the pain of abandonment like a scar that would never completely disappear. She knew life would never be the same, but she hoped that somehow she would find the strength to rebuild her shattered world. With João out of their lives, Maria faced a new reality, being a single mother. Despite the pain and abandonment, she knew she needed to find the strength to move forward for Miguel. Life was tough, but Maria was determined not to let the circumstances define her destiny. The first months were especially hard. Every cry from Miguel, every diaper change, every sleepless night seemed like an insurmountable challenge. Maria worked tirelessly to care for her son, balancing domestic responsibilities with her job. She knew she couldn't fail, as Miguel depended on her completely. Maria woke up before dawn to prepare everything before heading to work. She left Miguel with a trusted neighbor and took the bus to the city. Her job as a sales assistant in a clothing store didn't pay much, but it was enough to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. At work, she kept a smile on her face even when her heart was heavy. Every customer served, every piece of clothing folded, was a step towards ensuring Miguel's well-being. The evenings were dedicated to her son. After a long day at work, Maria found energy she didn't know she had. She played with Miguel, read him stories, and put him to sleep with lullabies her mother used to sing to her. Even exhausted, each moment with Miguel was a reminder of the unconditional love she felt for him and why she couldn't give up. Maria faced the curious glances and indiscreet questions with dignity. Some whispered about her situation, about João's disappearance, but she held her head high. She wasn't ashamed of being a single mother. On the contrary, she was proud of the courage and resilience she found within herself each day. She was a warrior, fighting for a better future for herself and her son. There were moments of despair when the bills piled up and the money seemed insufficient. But Maria always found a solution, whether it was taking on extra work or saving in creative ways. She did what was necessary, sacrificing her own needs for Miguel's well-being. Her own desires and dreams took a back seat, but she never complained. Her love for Miguel was greater than any sacrifice. The community, touched by her determination and courage, began to offer help. Small gestures like a hot meal delivered to her door or an afternoon of free babysitting made a huge difference. Maria, initially reluctant to accept help, learned that strength also lay in recognizing when she needed support. As time went on, Maria realized she wasn't just surviving but thriving. Every smile from Miguel, every new milestone in his development, was a victory, She had created a home filled with love and security, even amid adversity. The pain of João's abandonment still existed, but Maria didn't let it define her life. She was stronger than any challenge she had faced. Maria continued to fight, day after day, with a courage that inspired everyone around her. She had discovered an inner strength she never imagined she possessed, a strength that came from the pure and unconditional love for her son. And with every step she took, Maria knew she was building a better future, not just for Miguel, but also for herself. Years passed, and Maria, with her relentless determination, transformed her and Miguel's life into something more than just surviving. They had found a rhythm, a delicate peace in their routine. Miguel grew up healthy and happy, surrounded by his mother's unwavering love. Maria finally felt a sense of stability, until one day, an unexpected announcement brought a surprising twist. It was an ordinary morning with the sun shining through the kitchen curtains as Maria prepared breakfast. Miguel, now 5 years old, was at the table, drawing with his colored pencils. Suddenly the phone rang. Maria answered, expecting a routine call, but on the other end of the line, a formal voice brought news that would change everything. "Good morning, Mrs. Maria," said the voice. "I'm calling to inform you that you and your son were mentioned in a recent will. Your parents have passed away and left a considerable inheritance for you." Maria was in shock. Her parents, who had passed away years ago, had been simple people. She couldn't understand how they could have left a significant inheritance. The voice continued, explaining that a valuable property and a substantial amount of money now belonged to her and Miguel. With her mind racing, Maria sat down at the table, trying to process the information. Miguel, noticing his mother's surprised expression, asked, "What happened, Mommy?" Maria smiled, trying to hide her confusion and surprise. "We received some very important news, my love," she said. "It seems your grandparents left something very special for us." The news of the will quickly spread through the small community. Friends and neighbors were happy for Maria, recognizing her struggle and strength over the years. But for Maria, the inheritance meant more than just financial relief. It was a renewed connection with her parents, a final gift of love and care they had left for her and Miguel. As Maria adjusted to her new reality, she couldn't imagine that the news would also reach João's ears. Far away, João lived a life of regret and bitterness. His decisions had led him down a path of loneliness, and he often thought about Maria and Miguel. When he heard about the inheritance, a whirlwind of emotions arose in his heart. Consumed by curiosity and guilt, João decided he needed to see Maria and Miguel again. Perhaps it was an opportunity for redemption, to regain what he had lost. He knew it wouldn't be easy, that his return could reopen old wounds, but the prospect of the inheritance also sparked a flame of greed in his heart. While Maria began planning a more comfortable future for herself and Miguel, João was already on his way, driven by a mix of regret and interest. He had no idea that the journey he was about to undertake would reveal truths he never expected to find. Truths that would change everything he thought he knew about Maria, Miguel, and the family he had left behind. The unexpected announcement was just the beginning of a new series of events that would test Maria's courage and love, challenge João's intentions, and ultimately reveal a truth that had been hidden in the shadows of the past. The wind blew gently, carrying memories of a distant past. Maria was in the garden playing with Miguel when she heard the familiar sound of a car approaching. She looked down the road and saw a man hesitantly get out of the vehicle. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized João. João stood there with a look of mixed regret and hope. He seemed to have aged more than the time that had actually passed. The lines on his face told stories of sleepless nights and a heavy heart full of remorse. He took a step forward, and then another, each one more difficult than the last. "Maria," he stammered, his voice faltering as he tried to find the right words. I didn't know where else to go." Maria stood still, the past and present colliding violently in her mind. Miguel, not understanding the weight of the moment, ran to his mother and held her hand. "Who is he, Mommy?" the boy asked, his eyes curious. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "This is your father, Miguel," she said softly, not taking her eyes off João. The impact of her words hit both her and João with undeniable force. João knelt down to be at Miguel's level. "Hi, champ," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm your daddy." Tears began to stream down his face. "I'm so sorry for everything." Miguel looked to his mother for guidance, and Maria gave a slight nod, encouraging him to approach João. The boy took a hesitant step towards his father, and João opened his arms, hoping Miguel would accept his embrace. After a moment that seemed to last an eternity, Miguel ran into João's arms, and João held him tightly as if he would never let him go again. Maria watched the scene with mixed feelings. Seeing João embrace Miguel, seeing the love in his eyes, stirred emotions she thought she had long buried. But the pain of betrayal and abandonment was still there, lurking and ready to resurface. "Maria," João said, standing up with Miguel in his arms, "I know I can't undo what I've done. I know I hurt you in an unforgivable way, but I want to try to make things right. I want to be part of Miguel's life. I want to try to fix this." She crossed her arms, fighting back tears. "João, you left me at one of the hardest times in my life. You accused me, abandoned me, and left us alone. Now after everything, you come back and expect me to just accept you again?" João lowered his head, shame evident in his eyes. "I don't expect it to be easy, Maria. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I'm here, willing to do whatever it takes. I know I came back for selfish reasons, when I heard about the inheritance, but it made me realize how much I lost." Maria looked at Miguel, who was now playing with a toy João had brought. Seeing them together touched her heart in a way she didn't expect. She knew she had to think about her son's well-being, and Miguel deserved to know his father. But that didn't mean she would forget or forgive easily. "You can stay, João," she said finally, her voice firm. "But know that it will take time. Time to regain my trust. Time to show that you have truly changed." João nodded, accepting the conditions. He knew the road ahead would be long and full of challenges, but he was willing to face them. For Maria, for Miguel, and for himself. He had learned the hard way that true love requires courage, sacrifice, and above all, forgiveness. And so, with his heart full of hope and determination, João took the first step to mend the mistakes of the past, knowing that the journey to win back his family was just beginning. The days passed slowly as João tried to reconnect with Miguel and regain Maria's trust. He helped with household chores, played with Miguel in the garden, and spent long nights talking with Maria about the past, trying to understand and fix the mistakes he had made. The tension between them began to ease, but an air of mistrust still lingered. One afternoon, while organizing the attic, Maria found an old box of her parents' photos and documents. She decided to show them to João, hoping he would understand more about her family, and perhaps see what had always been clear to her. They sat on the living room floor, spreading the photos and documents in front of them. "Look here," Maria said, picking up a photo of her father as a young man. "This is my father, Miguel. Everyone always told me I have his eyes." João looked at the photo in silence, noticing for the first time Maria's father's dark skin. He picked up another photo, this time of her mother. "And this is my mother, Clara," Maria continued. "They were wonderful people, full of love and wisdom." João looked at Maria with a mix of surprise and understanding. "They had dark skin?" he asked, finally realizing what Maria was trying to show him. "Yes, João," Maria replied softly. "Miguel inherited my parents' genetics. He is our son, our precious boy. He always has been." Maria's words echoed in João's mind, the truth finally sinking in. He felt a huge weight lift from his shoulders, but also a new wave of guilt washed over him. How could he have been so blind? How had he allowed prejudice and insecurity to destroy everything they had? As João struggled to process this revelation, Maria continued, her voice firm but laden with emotion. "I tried to tell you, João. I tried to explain, but you didn't want to listen. You preferred to believe the worst of me." The pain in Maria's voice was palpable, and João felt tears starting to form in his eyes. "Maria, I'm so sorry. I was a fool, letting my fears and prejudices blind me. I didn't listen to you. I didn't trust you. I didn't trust the love we had." Maria wiped a tear from her face. "I know you're sorry, João, and I see that you're trying to make things right. But this revelation doesn't erase the pain I felt, nor the time you were absent. João held Maria's hands, looking into her eyes. I promise you, Maria, that I will spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. Trying to be the father Miguel deserves and the partner you always deserved. Maria looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, full of ups and downs. But at that moment, the unexpected revelation opened a door to hope. They had much to rebuild, many wounds to heal, but for the first time in a long while, Maria felt that they could truly find a path to redemption and love. As the sun set on the horizon, bathing the room in a golden light, João and Maria embraced, understanding that the truth, though painful, was the first step to a new beginning. Miguel ran over to them, sitting on João's lap, and together the small family began to glimpse the possibility of a brighter future. The weeks that followed were marked by a fragile calm, a delicate truce between a painful past and an uncertain future. João continued to do everything he could to show his remorse and commitment to regaining Maria's trust. Miguel, with the innocence of children, had already accepted his father back into his life, and his joy in playing with João was a constant source of hope for Maria. One night, while Miguel was sleeping, João and Maria sat on the porch watching the stars. The silence between them was comfortable, a peaceful pause that contrasted with the months of emotional turmoil. João knew it was time to make a request that had been growing in his heart. Maria, he began, his voice hesitant. I know asking for your forgiveness is asking a lot, but I have to try. You've given me the chance to be here, to be a part of Miguel's life again, and that means more than I can express. But there's something else I need to tell you. Maria turned to him, her eyes reflecting the soft light of the moon. What is it, João? He took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. I want to marry you again, Maria. Not just for me, but for Miguel. I want us to be a complete family. I want to give you what I should have given from the start. Love, respect, and trust. Maria felt her heart race. João's words were sincere, but the weight of the past still hung over her. João, she said slowly, I can't deny that you've been trying, but it's still hard to forget everything that happened. I still fear that you're here only because of the inheritance. João shook his head vehemently. Maria, the inheritance is what brought me back, yes, but it's not what keeps me here. I realize that money means nothing without you two. What keeps me here is the love I have for you and our son. I want to spend the rest of my life making up for the mistakes I made. Maria watched João, trying to gauge the sincerity in his eyes. The words he spoke seemed true, and the pain and determination in his expression couldn't be faked. She knew that forgiving him completely would take time, but she also knew that keeping her heart closed forever would only perpetuate the pain. João, she said finally, I believe you've changed, but we need more time. If you truly love me and love Miguel, you'll understand that we need to rebuild this slowly, step by step. João nodded, accepting Maria's conditions. I'll wait as long as it takes, he said. I'll prove to you every day that I'm here for the right reasons. As they sat in silence, a gentle breeze passed by them, as if the universe was somehow blessing their new attempt. And so, with a belated request and the truth finally revealed, João and Maria began to rebuild the foundations of their relationship. The journey would be long and full of challenges, but with each passing day, a new chapter was written, not just in their lives, but in Miguel's life as well. And that night, under the starry sky, a silent promise was made, that love, despite all difficulties, could heal and transform. As the moonlight bathed the porch, João held Maria's hand firmly, and together they faced the horizon, ready to face whatever came, with truth and love as their guides. Would you forgive João just like Maria did? Comment below with what you would do, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this.